All right, we have finally reached chapter 17, which is a chapter many of you, and one of you very specifically, has been waiting for weeks, even months. I'm very excited to be able to teach this lesson here, to go through it. But unfortunately, I was a little disappointed with the way the book handles it. They go through in about 5 or 6 pages. They talk about World War One. They talk about the beginning. The kind of the leading up to it, what took place there, the alliance systems. Then they talk about they don't even talk about. They mention one or two battles and they mention how it ends, and that's it. They talk about it in one section. I don't want to do that. I'm going to extend this to be much further. The videos are going to be a little bit shorter, between 15 to 30 minutes long for each video, but go through and talk about different parts of World War One and how it became the situation that changed the world. The entire world was changed and edited. And so we'll go through and I have one or two videos that deal with the beginning, kind of like the leading up into the Civil War, the World War One, and then we'll have many videos about different battles and different politics and things that took place during World War One, and then a couple that I'll talk about at the end about how World War One changed or the consequences, the results of the war. And so we'll go through and do that. I am going to try to make one video each day. We'll skip Saturday and Sunday, and even though we don't have school, technically speaking, the 6th through the 14th, I'm still going to make the videos. They'll be short videos, just going to put them on here so that you have them to look at and have them to do. I'm also going to try to somehow generate online quizzes or homework assignments that you guys are able to work on and able to do in that way. So with this understanding of going into this, I want to ask a question first. And the question is, can one person, one individual, a nobody, change the world? Can the actions and the choices of a single person who otherwise nobody would have known about change human history? And the answer to that question is obviously yes. We're going to look at how. But that individual, whomever it may be, is not able to change human history unless the situation is right. Unless the circumstances surrounding it are set up so that when they step out, when they do what they do, when they make a single choice, everything changes. And with this individual, actually, we look at, he doesn't just, it's not like he steps on the stage like a world leader, like a Napoleon or a Genghis Khan or Hitler or Xerxes, where they step in there and then they have years and years of influence and power of where they're going through and leading. No, this man went and made one decision, and that one decision changed everything. So let's go ahead and look at World War One. Let me ask you another question. What is the most contagious thing that is out there? What is the most contagious thing that somebody could catch? Now, for those who may not know, contagious means that it is spread from one person to another. Now, during this time, the reason I'm making these videos is because the coronavirus and the COVID-19 is going around everything there. And it's a very contagious virus that's out there, and people are wearing gloves and masks, and there's social distancing, there's stay-at-home orders, and there's self-quarantining. All these different things are going out there to help stop the spread of this contagion. But COVID-19 is not the only contagion that's out there. There are other contagions. The common flu, the common cold, the bubonic plague, all these different things, pink eye, pertussis, all these things are contagions. Chickenpox is highly contagious, especially if you've not had or the immunity. But I would argue that none of those are anywhere close to the most contagious thing that's out there. The most contagious thing that's out there is not even a virus. It's not a bacteria. It's not a disease. It's not even, if you think of it this way, alive. Now, I know viruses and some contagions are not technically alive, but they're not spread this way. The most contagious thing out there is an idea, is a thought, is a way that people look at a situation and then alter or change their own thoughts, their own ideas, their own actions, their own persona because of that idea. And there were many, many ideas in the workings leading up to the fateful moment where a single man made a single choice that changed human history, that changed the lives of billions of people. And it all started years and years before this with different contagious ideas. Well, what were some of these contagions that were there? First of all, one that we've talked about is the idea of nationalism. For many, many years, European nations had moved away from this tribal mindset that your family is the one that you look at, your family are you are loyal to. And they moved away from the tribal mindset and moved into a mindset of no, it's not the tribe, it's the nation. It's the people group here. It's the country. You are German, you are Italian, you are French, you are Britain, English from Britain. You have those there. You are Russian, and you want to do what you can to make your country great, your nation great. And that idea of nationalism drove these European countries and other countries around the world to strive to make themselves as rich and as powerful as they possibly could. This idea, this contagion of nationalism. And people grabbed onto it with both hands and went hard for this. All right, went hard towards it. They went and with what they were doing, they strove to do it as best they could. Well, how did they show this nationalism? How did they exaggerate this to the point of becoming a contagion that would alter the world? Well, first of all, we talked about this in the last several videos, the idea of making yourself an empire. And the way you make yourself an empire is you have overseas colonies. And these colonies that are over there, you have them, and you control them, you get the raw material, and you are wealthy because of it. And people look at it and they are jealous and they look and say, wow, what an incredible empire you have. But in order to take your empire, in order to create your empire, in order to keep your empire, you have to have a military. These European nations, for the past 100 years, had been revolutionizing, changing, altering, and updating their militaries. 100 years before this, before the outbreak of the revolution or of the World War I, you had the French Revolution and the revolutionary Napoleon who went through with his wars and conquered almost all of Europe and went through and did that. That was the last major war that was there. And when they were fighting that, they were fighting with muskets and cavalry and cannons. Like they called them Napoleon. The Napoleon cannon because of how well he used them. That's what they had. Well, fast forward to 100 years, and you have these basic modern militaries. You have the startup of repeating rifles. You have flamethrowers. You have cannons and guns that can shoot for hundreds and hundreds of yards, and even a mile, depending on how big some of these were. You have not just ironclad ships like they did in the Civil War, but you've got actual battleships now that weigh hundreds, if not thousands of tons that are there. And these armies that are made up of hundreds of thousands of individuals, and they're there. And so you have nationalism, but to keep your nation, to keep your empire, you need the military to support it. And on top of that, you have the military to support it. You have all these things. You have the financial backing, but you also have the Industrial Revolution. Now, this wasn't really a contagion, but this led to these nation states develop the ability to afford to have these kind of power, to have this kind of ability that was there. Germany and Italy had just recently, within the past 70 years, become actual nations. Germany had unified quickly through industrialization. It began going through there, and it actually was almost at point of becoming the most prosperous nation in the world. World fairs were held there, where new inventions, German engineering and ingenuity and technology were quickly spreading around the globe. Germany was the place to be. If you wanted to meet the cool guy in Europe, it was Germany. That's who it was there. But not only that, but you had smaller wars. In 1870, Germany had utterly humiliated France. Humiliated France. And Bismarck, who was Germany's chancellor, kind of think of like the president, the leader of Germany at that time, had made alliances with other areas, other nations in Europe to isolate France. So France and Germany had gone to war. France had completely just been blown out of the water by Germany. And Bismarck, who was an incredibly shrewd and intelligent leader, looked at it and says, I want to make sure that they don't come back and hurt me. So Germany had gone through and made alliances with Russia and Spain and parts of Italy and Britain, things like that, to keep France isolated in the alliance game. So that if France wanted to go to war against Germany, they'd be doing it by themselves. And they wouldn't have anybody else go with them. And not only would they be doing it by themselves, but if they went to war against Germany, then the alliances would call for all these other nation states to join Germany against France, and France did not want to do that. England also really did try to remain neutral in Europe with different things. They didn't want to get caught. They're a nation on an island. They didn't want to get caught up with the stuff there on the continent. Now, they had trades and things like that, but really they were just there to kind of make sure the little guys were treated nicely, were not mistreated, different things there. But eventually their neutrality would have to be broken. You also had Russia that was there. Russia and their empire was constantly eyeballing the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire, as I mentioned in a previous video, was an old, weak empire. They were not industrialized as much as they need to be. They were not modernizing their military as much as they needed to be. And Russia was looking at them and saying, what can I take from the Ottoman Empire that they're not going to be able to take back from me? So they go through and do that. Science and technology had developed to a point in the world that there was enough understanding of both health and death and military technology to create weapons, to create medicine, to create situations where they could be helped, where they can be drastic changes in the wars that would come. These different alliances that I mentioned, things started to develop. After Bismarck was no longer chancellor, a new chancellor came in, and his name was Wilhelm II. Now, the problem is that Wilhelm was not a good, strong leader like Bismarck. Bismarck was a crazy strong leader. People respected him all over the world. Wilhelm II, not so much. He didn't really pay close attention to things that needed to be. And one of the things that he did that would really hurt Germany in the years to come was he let the alliances between Germany and other nations, especially Russia, he let them lapse. He let them basically expire. So France was watching this. France saw, it was like, hey, when this alliance breaks down, when this alliance expires, we're going to make an alliance with Russia. So basically what had happened, Germany signed an alliance and said something along the lines of, for the next 25 years, we will have an alliance with you. And when 25 years is over, that alliance will be over as well. Okay, and we'll figure out how we feel about it in there. Now, it wasn't 25 years. It actually was closer to like 15, 12 years that this alliance expired. But they go through and they do this, and Wilhelm II looks at, or Wilhelm, the W is sometimes pronounced as a V. It doesn't matter. I'll pronounce it both ways there. But Wilhelm II looks at it and lets that expire, and France quickly jumps in and says, hey, Russia, let's make an alliance. Let's make an alliance here that we can do this. And Russia's like, sure, I'll sign an alliance with you. I just got an alliance with Germany, and that'll be great. And so what began to happen was Russia joined this alliance. And this alliance was formed with Russia, with Russia and France. And other nations would join, and they would become known as the Triple Entente, or this Entente was an alliance here. And so to go through and do that. Germany and other Europeans would, other European nation states, specifically the Ottoman Empire and the Austria-Hungarian Empire, they would join in alliances there. Bulgaria would be in alliance with Germany, and it'd be pretty helpful, very useful for them. But there was also a problem that we had here, and this deals with the next contagion that I'll talk about. Nationalism and the pride of nationalism. That was the first contagion, the first idea that spread throughout the world. The second one was the contagion of independence, and I'll discuss that one in the next video.